Welcome again to Our Ventura. My name is MB Hanrahan, and today my guest is Lorenzo DeStefano, a writer, playwright, director, photographer, and bringer of culture. Is there a word for that? Lorenzo, welcome.
Hi.
You know, we've been friends, or at least acquaintances, for a long time. I'd say friends now, but I just remember like being an artist at Art City here in Ventura. And then all of a sudden, like, you were here. And then all of a sudden, like, we would go to a play down in Los Angeles. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your story of how you came from where you came from and how you got here?
Well, I think we met through Paul Lindhard, impresario of Art City. I was a film editor in LA for many years, and I come up here a lot on weekends and stuff. And so when I moved up here permanently about 6 years ago, and started the Film Society and stuff like that, I started to realize there was a community here that I'd overlooked for so many years because I was just a weekender, you know, until I got here for a longer, more permanent state. I realized the value of different people that had gathered here.
Right.
And, you know, it's been terrific.
So you mentioned the Film Society, and you were basically the founder of it. Is that correct?
2008, we founded it, yeah.
So why don't you, your mission statement is great, and I'm not going to read it. Why don't you share with us the mission statement of it and in a general way describe how it's run, because we're not a time-sensitive show.
Yeah. Well, it's been pretty consistent since the beginning. Bringing people together in the dark is kind of what we call it now. Discover the world around you, this kind of thing. That's been pretty much the same ethos as from the beginning. I'm a filmmaker. I've been to a lot of festivals with my films. I've been treated great or poorly, depending on the festival, and I thought we could do something here that had never been done, which is a steady, it's evolved into a year-round kind of thing, twice a month at 420 East Santa Clara, which is where we're screening now. But it started as a festival once a year, big, you know, too many films in too short a time, and quickly realized there's just too much to digest, you know. So when we went to a year-long thing, it became much more community-based because you could do more. You could market the films better, you could target your audience better, as opposed to trying to jam them all in there in 4 days.
And so you choose films?
The screening committee chooses films. I'm sort of stepping back a little this year to do other things, and but as a result, the board and a great bunch of people, at least 10 to 15 people who committed to this, selects the films, screens them from a broad array of sources, and tries to focus on newer films, but also repertory, you know, films that have been shown but not seen in public for a long time.
Right, or maybe not seen in Ventura on any kind of wide release.
And not seen together in a group. The whole idea of bringing people together is that, like last night we screened The Mission, and the director Peter Bratt came in with that. That was a whole other level when you bring a filmmaker in. And,
you often do that, though. I mean, I've been there where, like, the star is there, or the director is there, or you're like in the festival. Sometimes you actually bring in someone and celebrate their whole kind of their life. And
we did that with Paul Mazursky in 2010, and yeah, it's not like you know, other festivals. Santa Barbara is huge, you know, and that's very much star oriented, and they do a great job. But that's a different level. But we've done what we can do. It's not always cheap to bring people in, but. This current program, 4 out of the 6 films have filmmakers, so that's pretty good.
And what I've experienced, what I've seen, is that it seems like there's always some students from the Brooks Photography School running around, interning maybe, or I don't know what they're doing.
We've done some interning.
Up and coming filmmakers being involved.
I think over the course of time, we've had at least 40 Brooks filmmakers in different capacities, whether it's showing their films, graphics help, website, you know, intern. We did some official and unofficial interning with them. So yeah, it's been, you know, good relationship.
Bringing up the new generation, and you know, may I say that, but in my experience also, that all these the different places where the different venues where you've had screenings have been completely easy to get to, mostly downtown Ventura. And it's just there. It's there for people. When someone would be interested, we'll move on. But if someone was interested in trying to, you know, well, Film Society? Well, I've never heard of this. How do they get in touch with them?
This is VenturaFilmSociety.com, and
Perfect.
the full schedule's there, and the history is there. And it's twice a month, first and third Tuesdays at 7:15.
Great. Okay, so you, a gem. Here, not only that you pursue your vision, that you try to make it available to others. I saw your film, Los Zafiros. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit, because it's not unusual to find it, you know, through film finding organizations, is all I have to say. It's not that obscure. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, luckily it's in distribution, you
Yes,
know,
that's what I was
and
trying to
along with another music film of mine, or on Netflix and different venues. So it's like an author with a book out of print. It's kind of sad, you know. But these are thankfully still out there.
Yes.
And it was released in Europe in December on a European DVD. So it's got a life. It's a story about the Sapphires, a group from the 60s, often called the Beatles of 1960s Cuba, post-revolutionary doo-wop group, largely influenced by American R&B music. And the film, I sort of stumbled into the story, having been to Cuba many times.
With your photography.
As a photographer, and I directed a play down there with a playwright friend of mine. And stumbled on this record of this great group. It's not really my kind of music, but the story really got to me. And it was a bunch of young guys from the street. Some of the classic rock and roll story.
Yeah.
And then they lasted about 10 years, broke apart because of drink and rivalry, and you know. But they were studs. You know, they were young stars. And so what we did was we took the two surviving members, Manuel Galban and Miguel Cancio, and one lived in Miami, one lived in Havana. So you had this kind of, they had been split, you know, by politics. And the idea was to have the music trump politics for a change, and to bring these two guys together again as a sort of 40-year reunion, which we did. And the film is resulting, it got richer. It was sort of a music documentary to start with, but it became universally relevant because it was about loss and youth and the things that we all
The human element story.
Yeah.
And then
the music's gorgeous.
And the music's gorgeous, I was going to say. So it's Los Zafiros.
Right.
So the Z.
Zafiros.
Right.
Sapphires, yeah.
Sapphires. So what is your current project? I kind of know what it is, but I want you to explain.
Big KG.
Yes.
Well, I've been working for some time on adapting a 17 million word diary.
Well, that's all.
By a man in Boston named Arthur Inman.
Right.
I've said this so many times, I almost just turn on the switch.
I know, but
talk
that's
about
okay. Turn it on for us.
But it's deep in me. I don't know why I identify with this project so much. The guy is quite a piece of work, you know, very much an anti-hero, a thorny character with some bizarre opinions. But he wrote this 17 million word diary, which contains the lives of over 1,000 characters, including himself and his wife of 40 years, his household staff. He was sort of a wealthy guy who devoted all of his attentions and his considerable observational skills to recording time. We call him the original blogger. A man, he lived from 1895 to 1963, and made use of the contacts at the time, mostly through personal ads, to rope in these 1,000-some people who he paid to come up and talk to him in Garrison Hall, the building that still exists there, apartment 604, to unload their hopes and dreams, their stories, and that became his diary, which I first read in 1985. It was published by Harvard University Press, and started a correspondence with the editor.
Didn't it start out as a play for you, or am I?
For me, it did, yeah.
Okay.
It was a published diary.
Right.
And through Daniel Aaron, who's a literary advisor on the project and a dear friend who's turning 100 in August. He's a professor emeritus at American history at Harvard still.
Wow.
Goes to the office every day, 99 years old.
There we go.
And an inspirational guy. And he passed the baton to me officially, and then I got the rights from Harvard and have still retained the rights. And yes, we did it as a play with an English director named Jonathan Miller, who's quite well known as a stage and opera director. And we did it in Seattle and in London. And then I've been adapting it for film ever since, and we're working with the great English actor John Hurt from Elephant Man and many other roles to bring this guy to life. Hopefully this year.
Really?
We'll see.
Okay, well, we're gunning for that.
Thank you.
You know, Lorenzo, one of the, for me, in even doing this program, my commitment is turning people on to Our Ventura, to people like yourself that, with all the things that you could be doing, for some reason, you seem to have a commitment to bring your vision and even just these stories to the general public. Why? Why tell these stories? What moves you to take years and years and years to get these obscure, but very interesting stories? Why? And then bring them to us.
Well, I don't know. You know, it's hard to figure out the motivation of this stuff. You get hooked, and you got to go, continue. You know, people say, "How do you stay on these things for so long?" And you know, looking for some secret of why the motivation. It basically is the humiliation would be too great if you didn't deliver to yourself first, and then to others who you've told about it. So you know, I think authors, writers, they do this. They put themselves in a position of humiliation if they don't deliver, so they have to deliver.
And then the investment just kind of builds on
itself. And
itself.
then it accrues to the point where you know, you've got something. But I guess they all sort of share. They would be forgotten stories otherwise.
There you go. That's what I was thinking. We still have a little more time, because another one of your films was on a gentleman named Talmage Farlow, excuse me, and a musician that was really hot and gave it up. What kind of story is that? Oh my God.
Yeah, Tal was a sign painter who taught himself how to play guitar. He should have really been a textile worker and lived and died in obscurity in Greensboro, North Carolina. But he had an innate gift. Like, I guess, you know, the idea here is to maybe inspire people to look inward and find out what's going on inside of them, you know, not to be convinced or affected too much by what people tell them they can do, but what they can do themselves. You know, not that everybody's going to be a great guitar player or a great writer or anything like that, but you can do a lot, you know, trusting your qualities that are in all of us, you know. And that's beyond religion or anything like that. That's about opening up to the possibilities.
It takes a lot of courage to be a virtuoso at something, and then for one reason or another, I mean, those kind of stories, just between you and me, they kind of almost scare me. Like, I don't even want to look at like what it would be like to give up the investment, just much like what you were saying, of like putting all your time in this project, or even putting all your time into a reputation, and then to just go one day, this doesn't work for me.
Well, in
But it's an
Farlow's
important
case,
message.
yeah, he left in basically had 10 years on the scene, late 40s to late 50s, and wasn't his scene. I mean, he played with the greats, you know, everybody, 52nd Street, the whole bebop scene. Tal Farlow is a legend, and from relatively little time on the scene, he retired. He had a drinking problem. He went back to sign painting and fishing, moved to the Jersey Shore, a little town called Seabright. And the film, which was made in the early 80s, was kind of my first substantial piece I did for PBS, gave him a new career. And we became friends for 20 years until his death in 1998. So it was a life experience as well as a film job or a film project, you know.
Well, I'm going to say thank you. Thanks for
you.
bringing this to us. This has been Our Ventura. Lorenzo, if someone wants to get in touch with you, the man, how do they do that?
Well, they can go to the Film Society site and send an email, and I'll usually get it.
Very good. Well, once again, Our Ventura. My name's MB Hanrahan. My guest, Lorenzo DeStefano. Thank you very much.